Grace and peace and spoiler alert for the movie and the book, Ender's Game. And I really do want to underline the spoiler alert this time. I don't want to say anything about why other than it'll spoil things. And you don't want this spoiled. If you haven't read Ender's Game, read Ender's Game. Don't watch the movie until you've read it. And then come back here, watch the video later. You can go to my channel, go down, watch other videos before I spoil Ender's Game. For the rest of you that have read the book or watched the movie, I read the book recently with my wife, and then afterwards we watched the movie, which I had actually seen in theaters previously, and I'm gonna talk about it theologically. That's what I do. I think theologically about movies that I see. Usually I'm not the book pastor, but I guess this time I am. So in the movie version of Ender's Game, and I have the quote here, it gives us the thesis statement of the movie. It gives us an introduction, which is a quote from the book. In that moment when I truly understand my enemy, understand him well enough to defeat him, then in that very moment, I also love him. The quote actually continues, I think it's impossible to really understand somebody, what they want, what they believe, and not love them in the way they love themselves. And then, in that very moment when I love them, I destroy them. It's such an interesting quote. And it's a quote which rings with context of the person who wrote it, Orson Scott Card, who is a Mormon and is informed by a particular understanding of theology which appreciates Jesus. Jesus holds a significant place in Mormonism, though not the same place that he holds in confessional or Orthodox Christianity. And so for him to say, you have to love them the way you love yourself, or the way they love themselves, echoes with the words of Jesus. You love your neighbor as yourself and love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And yet, into that context, he throws, you destroy them with that love. This is even ickier if you consider some of the statements that Orson Scott Card has made about the LGBTQ plus community, and the fact that the enemies in the book, the Formics, which are ant-like aliens, he refers to constantly throughout the books as buggers. Many people think that these ant-like aliens are made to be illustrations of the LGBTQ community, using that phrase. For that reason, in the movies, it was actually changed, and they never say the word buggers. So all through this conversation, we are dealing with multiple layers of context. Look at how advanced you are for even beginning the conversation with me. There is a author, there is a book, and then there is an adaptation of that book into a movie with a different author, and all of it claims to come through this lens of this idea that understanding is necessary for winning, and love is necessary for understanding. Well, now let's get to the spoilery part, to the thing that's going to really ruin your experience of the book. That at the climax of this book that has all to do, and this movie, that has all to do with a young boy figuring out how to win at things. Figuring out how to win fights, figuring out how to win games, figuring out how to win battle room clashes, is a boy who is playing a game that has to do with spaceships and aliens that he believes is a training sim for being able to command an army, and finding a loophole in that game, finding a strategy which will allow him to sneak out a victory against the expectations of his opponent running the training sim and destroying the alien planet, destroying the planet of his enemy, only to realize that this time it wasn't a game at all, that it was real. What's the difference between playing a game and striving in real life? What's the theological, teleological, higher level difference between doing something for real and doing something in a game? The terms of the consequences, right? The length of what will happen in a game. You can always pack up the game again. In real life, you're left with that, and certainly Ender says that in the movie. You know, he's like, "You don't understand. I'm gonna have to live with this for the rest of my life." And I think, therefore, even more than the terms of the consequences, one of the central differences is the mindset, the level of analysis we put towards what we are doing. When we're playing a game, we're willing to experiment. We're willing to kind of try things, to see what'll happen. And if I lose, I restart, I try again. But if it's real, I'm more careful. I want to make sure to make the right step. So what's it all mean? What gets said then when we tell the story of a kid who's great at games, who wins all the games, suddenly, accidentally winning for real? It turns out his enemy isn't his enemy, isn't deserving of death, is in fact deserving of love. Which, boy, what an interesting message to send back to Orson Scott Card about Orson Scott Card's enemies, the buggers, don't you think? I think it speaks to a lot of us in terms of what it is we're striving for and what we might do if we actually got it. What it is that we're trying to learn or trying to get, and what it would look like if we ever succeeded. I'm a pastor. I work in a church environment, and so many churches that I speak to are interested in getting more young people involved. They want more young people and more young families. And how do we get more young people? And how do we reach them? And how do we incorporate them into our church? I think it's a worthwhile question to start to ask, what would happen if we did? It would change the church. It wouldn't look like our church anymore. Our traditions, our use of facilities, it would all be different. Is that something that we want, that we are ready for, that we've prepared ourselves for? And by the way, why do we want that? Maybe that is something we want, that the young people would come and change our church. But why do we want the young people to come and change our church? What's the purpose? Have we thought through the ramifications of our actions? And if, for instance, we are people who are motivated by a prime drive as Christians to share the gospel and to bless the lives of as many people as possible, then the end of blessing the lives of young people might be a worthwhile end. But yet, that is so rarely the question. I so rarely get asked, "Ryan, how do we bless the lives of more young people in our community?" And so frequently get asked, how do we attract young people to sit in our sanctuaries? This is true even in a wider scope. Look at the way we're treating creation. Look at how we are treating Mother Earth. We take from her, we strip mine for coal, we fail to recycle because we have busy lives. And I mean, I'm just speaking about myself. I can't always be bothered to rinse out that can and set it separately and make sure it makes it into recycling. I've got an infant at home. And what am I trying to accomplish? Ultimately, what do I get out of all of that mistreatment of the earth? And what will it get for me? What are the things that you devote the majority of your time to? What are the things that you live your life for? What are your goals? What's on your to-do list? And have you thought thoroughly about the why? I think Ender would like you to. Otherwise, when you die, the speaker for the dead isn't going to have great things to say.
And when in scenes of glory I sing the new song, 'twill be